Tilapia is back on the menu for thousands of Las Vegas locals who buy it live from the market. This all happened after the Nevada Department of Wildlife reversed its plan not to renew licenses to handle tilapia. There was concern for all this fish winding up in our local waterways as an invasive species. Fox's Mike Allen explains what led to the change after it looked like fish would have to replace this staple of Asian and Latin American cuisine.
It did look like that, Jacqueline. You might remember just over a month ago, I introduced you to the only wholesaler of live tilapia here in southern Nevada. He was really nervous about the future of his industry, and that includes the markets that he sells to, like the one behind me, after their licenses were not renewed. A much happier conversation this time around, though, with him and the co-owner of his business.
We feel really excited about getting the tilapia back in the markets.
A happy turn of events for people whose livelihood depends on one of the most popular fish in the world.
This was a pretty big bump, but we got through it.
Tony Pappas co-owns SeaTac, a wholesale live fish distributor based in Las Vegas. For the last month, he was nervous about the future of his company after getting news that his permit to carry live tilapia, by far his best-selling fish, would not be renewed.
It's been a long 6 weeks, but we have our permit back. The stores in Chinatown have their permit back, and we can start moving tilapia again. So we're really happy about that.
He was able to get his license back by being grandfathered in by the Nevada Department of Wildlife under the condition that he continue making sure tilapia does not find its way into our local lakes and rivers where it's an invasive species.
It's those people that have been good standing with their permits and honored the permits they've been given are the ones that are being able to go forward.
Doug Nielsen with the Department of Wildlife says the intention was never to hurt businesses, and he feels good about keeping tilapia out of our local waterways moving forward.
I think after our conversations that we can go forward and we know where everybody's at and good things can happen for the public and for these vendors.
Pappas, who talked with me Friday just after meeting with the department up in Reno, hinted at a partnership with the government moving forward.
We're going to move on with some new projects with the state. That's going to be great for Nevada.
Now, along with SeaTac, the Department of Wildlife also renewed licenses for a few of the markets that the wholesaler sells to, meaning starting tomorrow morning, you will start seeing live tilapia back in supermarkets like the one behind me, specifically in Chinatown. Reporting live from Chinatown tonight, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.